Shocking truth: white woman steals black CEO's job only to find out he owns the airline. In the heart of the bustling city, a shocking twist unfolded that would leave jaws on the floor. Jessica Langley, a mid-level manager with a knack for networking and ambition to spare, had inadvertently bulldozed her way into the biggest scandal of the year. When she landed a promotion that was rumored to have been reserved for Marcus Davis, the respected CEO with an impressive track record and a brilliant mind, heads turned, eyes widened, and whispers filled the air. The office buzzed like an electric wire about to snap. Was she a backstabber or just extraordinarily lucky? Marcus wasn't just your average businessman. He was a force, a beacon in the industry. But as Jessica settled into the big chair with her name on the door, something lifted off his shoulders like a dark shroud. The atmosphere crackled with tension. Colleagues exchanged glances, uncertainty looming heavy. What had really gone down behind the scenes? People seemed torn, some angry, others amused. A scandal of this magnitude felt almost cinematic, but then came the moment that turned suspicion into full-blown shock. While sifting through company emails, Jessica stumbled upon something astounding. A series of files coded in an unreadable language of corporate jargon, and there it was, a detail that shook her world. Beneath those impersonal lines, she found a secret buried deep. Marcus Davis didn't just run a company, he owned the airline itself. Her heart raced, a lump lodged in her throat as questions filled her mind. Why had nobody told her? What was he planning to do? The stakes had just skyrocketed. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back in the office, the atmosphere shifted. There was now an air of predatory tension. Fear danced in the eyes of her co-workers, muffled whispers echoed around her, and the question hung heavy: would Marcus seek revenge for the job he never intended to lose? Suddenly, all eyes were on her. Jessica could feel the heat of suspicion branding her. Every single beat felt like the drumroll before a storm, as she clutched the files, the implications heavy in her hands. Those pages promised more than just corporate secrets, they hinted at a perilous game that was only just beginning. Would Jessica navigate this mess, or would her luck run out? As the clock ticked ominously in the background, she pressed her lips together, knowing one truth: she had unwittingly stepped into a nest of vipers, and the bite was coming, but who would strike first? Jessica's mind raced as she sat in the plush CEO office that felt colder than a winter morning. The walls, once friendly, seemed to close in around her. Was it really just a few hours ago that she'd felt the thrill of success? Now she grappled with the very real fear that she'd become a target, with the company's future and her own safety hanging by a thread. A knock on the door startled her, the sound resonating like a gunshot in the tense silence. It was Tasha, her once loyal assistant, now wearing an uneasy expression. Jessica. We need to talk, she said, stepping hesitantly into the room, her voice laced with concern. About what? Jessica didn't bother hiding her irritation. Tasha closed the door softly behind her, the click echoing between them like an unwelcome omen. I can't shake the feeling that you're in over your head. Marcus is not someone you want to mess with. There are whispers, dark ones. Jessica scoffed, brushing off Tasha's warning. I deserve this. I worked hard, and I'm not going to let anyone intimidate me. Sure, but it's about more than that, Tasha said, her voice trembling. You might want to check this out. Jessica could see Tasha's hands shaking as she handed over a folded piece of paper. Jessica opened it, quickly scanning the contents. It was a printed email, a thread between Marcus and an unnamed executive, discussing the unexpected staffing changes and strategies to sabotage the current leadership. her stomach churned. The words grounded the competition, cutting off resources, and phrases like "make an example of her" leaped off the page. Marcus was plotting something sinister, and she was at the center of it. "Tasha, this is..." Jessica trailed off, her pulse quickening. Marcus wouldn't just let this slide. He was out for blood. "What do I do?" Tasha shifted her weight nervously. "You need to be careful. He's always several steps ahead. I've seen him dismantle careers before. You have to protect yourself." Before Jessica could respond, her phone buzzed like a warning siren. It was a message from Marcus: "We need to meet. Now." Her palms dampened with sweat as she read the text again. Meet him? Alone? This was a bad idea. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to hide, but instead, she sat frozen, paralyzed by fear and the need for answers. "What are you going to do?" Tasha murmured. I have to confront him. I need to know what he's planning. What if he's dangerous?" Tasha's voice cracked. Jessica exhaled, determination hardening in her chest. "I can't let him intimidate me. This is my position now." With every ounce of resolve she could muster, she smoothed her hair and squared her shoulders. "I'll be fine." But even as the words left her lips, uncertainty gnawed at her. She had ventured into a world of raw ambition and deceit, and the moment had come to face her rival head-on. As Jessica made her way to Marcus's office, every footstep echoed her doubts. What game was he planning to play? Would she walk away with her career intact, or would she find herself entangled in a web of corporate chaos? The fluorescent lights flickered ominously above her, mirroring the tension in the pit of her stomach. The door loomed ahead. She was about to step into the lioness den, but the only question that remained was whether she would emerge victorious or become another casualty of the unrelenting corporate jungle. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the handle. What would Marcus reveal in the darkness beyond? Jessica's heart pounded as she approached the door, the metal handle cool against her palm. She could hear muffled voices from within, but the moment she pushed it open, silence enveloped her. Marcus sat behind his massive, polished desk, a picture of calm in his tailored suit. The sharp lines of his face were illuminated by the glow of the overhead lights, casting shadows that seemed to dance menacingly. "Jessica," he said without looking up. "I was beginning to think you'd ghost me." "Cut the games, Marcus. I saw the emails." "I know what you're doing," Jessica replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She held her ground, fighting the urge to flee. He finally looked up, his smirk blindingly confident. "Oh, you mean the corporate strategies? Just business as usual, darling. You should know that by now." "Is that what you call it?" She shot back, fists clenched at her sides. "Targeting me? Trying to undermine everything I built?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "You're a smart girl, Jessica. But smart girls know when they're in over their heads." He glanced at the clock, then back at her. "It's a dog-eat-dog world. You should have prepared for the fallout." Anger surged within her. "You think I'm just going to roll over? I'm not scared of you." "Scared? No, I don't think that." Marcus's voice dropped, becoming more serious. "But perhaps you should be cautious. You've stepped on a lot of toes, and there are people in this industry who won't hesitate to cut you down." In that moment, the walls seemed to close in. The very air around her felt heavy, suffocating. Jessica swallowed hard, weighing her options. Should she retaliate now, or bide her time? Before she could decide, Marcus continued, almost as if reading her thoughts. "I keep my enemies closer. You should consider doing the same." He leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Let me show you the power I wield. You might realize our goals aren't so different after all." Suddenly, the door swung open, wrenching Jessica from their charged standoff. A tall figure stepped in. Casey, the CFO of the company. His gaze darted back and forth between them before settling on Marcus. "We need to talk," Casey said, urgency tinging his voice. He turned to Jessica, concern etched across his features. "I just heard not now, Casey." "This is a private conversation," Marcus snapped, dismissing him with a wave of his hand. "Jessica," Casey tried again, but Marcus stood up, his towering presence radiating intimidation. "Leave us!" Marcus thundered, eyes fierce. The authority rushing from him felt like a tangible force, and Jessica could see Casey's hesitation as he glanced back at her. "No, wait." Jessica stepped forward, the fear now igniting a spark of defiance. "What do you know? What are you hiding?" Casey paused, a tangle of emotions crossing his face. "It's about the merger," he whispered, glancing nervously at Marcus. "There's something dangerous at play." "Enough." Marcus barked again, his hand slashing through the air, cutting off their exchange. "Jessica, you're playing with fire. It's better to keep your mouth shut unless you want to get burned." The tension in the room shattered like glass. Jessica felt her stomach drop, a mixture of dread and adrenaline coursing through her veins. What did Casey know? Who really held the power in this dangerous game? "Think carefully about your next move," Marcus added, his voice low and dangerous, as he leaned closer, his dark eyes boring into hers. "You may not like the results." With that, he gestured toward the door, dismissing her like a pawn. Jessica stood frozen, her thoughts racing, her future hanging by a thread. Was she really willing to risk it all? As she turned to leave, a single thought echoed in her mind: what had Casey seen? This tangled web was more than just a boardroom rivalry. It felt like a storm brewing on the horizon, and Jessica had to decide whether to stand and face it or run for safety. The moment she exited, she caught Casey's eye. "What do you know?" she whispered urgently, the stakes feeling higher than ever. "Some secrets could cost you." "Everything," he replied, his voice strained. What had she stepped into? Jessica's mind raced as she stepped out of Marcus's office, her heart still pounding from the confrontation. The fluorescent lights flickered above, adding to her sense of unease. Casey was already halfway down the hall, his pace hurried, but Jessica was determined. She wouldn't let him slip away. "Casey!" she called, the urgency lacing her voice. He turned, eyes wide with concern. "We need to talk now," she insisted, grabbing his arm before he could retreat any further. He hesitated, glancing back toward Marcus's domain. "Not here," he whispered, pulling her toward the staircase at the end of the corridor. "This is too risky." As they descended the stairs, Jessica's pulse quickened. "What did you mean when you said there's something dangerous at play?" Casey stopped on the landing, looking around to ensure they were alone. "Jessica, you don't understand the implications. If you dig too deep into this merger, you might expose something that several powerful people are trying to keep hidden." "Hidden? What are you talking about?" Jessica's frustration flared. "I need answers." He rubbed the back of his neck, anxiety etched on his face. "I can't say much. Just know that there are backdoor deals happening that could jeopardize not just your career but your safety." Jessica crossed her arms, anger mingling with fear. "I can't just walk away. I won't let Marcus or anyone else ruin everything I've worked for." "You're not just a competitor to him, you're a threat," he said, his voice a low hiss. "You've made enemies, Jessica. Powerful enemies." She felt the weight of his words sink in. Helplessness clawed at her insides. What's that supposed to mean? What about the merger? They're planning something that involves more than just corporate gains. It smells like a coup, and you're in the crosshairs, Casey explained, glancing nervously over his shoulder again. "Tell me," she urged, desperation creeping into her voice. "Look," he said, taking a deep breath. "There's a reason Marcus has so much influence. He's not just playing for power, he's playing for reign. I can't prove it yet, but I've seen him make shady deals with the people who might be called influential players in this industry. If you don't tread carefully, you might find yourself in the middle of something much worse than a takeover. Jessica's mind spun. A coup? How could this be happening in the very place where she thought she could thrive? The fierce anger she felt toward Marcus transformed into wild fear. What about the board? They can't be on board with this. She pressed. He shook his head slowly. Marcus has eyes and ears everywhere. He's manipulated the board before. If you want proof, you have to trust me. We need to work together. I can't trust you. You're just as wrapped up in this as he is. Jessica spat, her voice echoing off the walls. I'm trying to warn you. Casey shot back, his frustration boiling over. If we don't hurry and uncover what is happening, it won't just cost you your career. It could endanger your life. Jessica froze, the finality of his words washing over her. She felt the icy grip of reality close around her heart. What she thought was just a corporate struggle had spiraled into something dark and sinister. She stepped back, taking a deep breath. What do we need to do? Meet me tonight, Casey said. I'll show you what I've gathered. But be careful. Marcus will be watching. A sudden noise echoed down the hallway, causing both of them to freeze. Footsteps. Jessica felt her skin prickle with fear. They couldn't afford to be seen together again. Go, Casey instructed, urgency etched into his features. I'll find a way to contact you. I won't betray you, Casey, she whispered, her mind racing with the implications of their conversation. As she hurried away, a thought gnawed at her insides. Not only the stakes of her career were on the line. There was something lurking in the shadows, waiting to pounce. Would she end up a pawn in this twisted game? What awaited her at their meeting when the night fell? Would Casey reveal the full extent of the web entangling them both, or would it drag her further into danger? The day dragged on, each tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. Jessica found herself glancing at her watch more often than didn't each time the minutes felt like hours. The office buzzed with the normal hustle and bustle, but all she could hear was the pounding of her heart. Casey's words echoed in her mind, as unsettling as the flickering fluorescent lights above. As she packed her things, she tried to hold on to her resolve. She was going to meet Casey. But what if it was a mistake? What if he was playing her like a game piece, leading her into a trap? Doubts thundered in her mind, but a gut feeling told her she had to know the truth. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward her as she stepped out of the office building. Nightfall brought a chill in the air. She pulled her jacket tighter around her and paced toward the secluded cafe where she and Casey had agreed to meet. When she arrived, the clash of dark wood and dim light almost felt welcoming. The cafe was nearly empty, save for a couple in the corner engrossed in their conversation. Jessica scanned the room, her heart racing at every creak of the building. Where was he? Adrenaline pumped through her veins as she gripped her phone tightly, ready to call him if she had to. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows. Casey. He looked different, on edge, the worry etched deeply into his features. He slid into the booth across from her. She noticed his shirt was wrinkled, as if he had rushed here straight from somewhere after a long day. Did you see anyone? He asked, eyes darting around. No, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. Good, he nodded, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. We have to act quickly. I've discovered some information that could change everything. Her breath caught. What did you find? Casey leaned forward, his eyes intense. It ties Marcus to financial backers, people who would do anything to maintain their power. I got a tip from a whistleblower inside the board. They told me about a money laundering scheme that could prove Marcus is corrupt. Corrupt? Jessica felt ice form in the pit of her stomach. Like, legally corrupt? He nodded, lowering his voice even further. Worse. If I'm right, This coup isn't just about corporate gains, it involves entire financial networks that could bring down the company and you if you're seen as a threat. Jessica's mind raced. This was bigger than she thought. She had to choose, stand back and risk everything or step into the line of fire. How do we expose him? We need evidence, Casey said, urgency threading through his voice. A leak from someone on the inside could be our best chance. But we have to play it smart. We can't let him see us coming. Can we trust this whistleblower? Jessica felt her skepticism flare, but a part of her was ready to act. Right now, they might be our only ally, Casey replied. But Marcus knows more than we think. He'll have people watching us. It's risky. What choice do we have? Jessica felt her heart thrum with rising stakes. Just then, a loud crash shattered the tension. A chair tipped over across the room, the couple startled and turned to see what had happened. Jessica's heart seized, it felt like a warning bell. She glanced toward the entrance, and something deep inside her twisted. A man stood in the doorway, dark-eyed and menacing. He scanned the cafe like a hawk, his presence commanding immediate attention. Casey, she whispered, fear clawing at her throat. He followed her gaze, and his expression shifted from urgency to horror. We need to go. Now. Jessica felt an icy grip of fear, every instinct screaming at her to move, but her legs felt rooted to the floor. They were no longer just playing a game. Danger had arrived, and the stakes had never been higher. As they slipped out the back, heart racing, one question loomed heavy in the air: would they uncover the truth before it swallowed them whole? The cold air bit at Jessica's skin as she and Casey hurried down the narrow alley behind the cafe, their breaths visible in quick bursts of panic. Each step felt heavy, like they were dragging the weight of the world behind them. The adrenaline coursed through Jessica, urging her feet to move faster, to escape the danger that lurked just behind them. Where do we go? She gasped, questions flooding her mind. They'll be looking for us. Casey grabbed her wrist, his grip firm but shaking. We need to get to my place. It's safer there until we figure out our next move. She nodded, the familiar knot of fear tightening. They rounded a corner and sprinted down the side streets, the distant sounds of the city fading behind them. But the unease hung thick in the air, and she could feel the darkness closing in. Casey, what if they find us? Her voice trembled as they ducked into a small parking garage, its shadows wrapping around them like a cloak of anonymity. They won tea, he responded, albeit less convincingly than she needed. This is just a precaution. We'll be fine. But as they entered the cramped elevator, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The fluorescent lights flickered ominously, matching the frantic thumping of her heart. As they made their way to Casey's apartment, the weight of their situation began to settle like lead in her stomach. Once inside, Casey shut the door with a resolute thud and leaned against it, panting. We need to think clearly. If Marcus has people out looking for us, then we need a plan, she interrupted, pushing back her rising panic. What exactly do we need from the whistleblower? Details on the money laundering. We need proof that ties Marcus directly to the scheme. Otherwise, it's just our word against his. Casey ran a hand through his disheveled hair, anxiety radiating off him. And what if this whistleblower isn't who they say they are? Jessica asked. Doubt prickled at her, a reminder of just how many unknowns were swirling around them. Then we take the risk. There's no other way. He paced the floor, a storm of thoughts in his eyes. But we have to meet them first. Tonight. Tonight? Her pulse quickened. We can't go back out. It's too dangerous. We don't have a choice. If we let this opportunity slip away, Marcus will have us both boxed in, and there won't be a way out. He finally stopped in front of her. You have to trust me, Jess. We can do this together. As she stared into his eyes, she saw a determination that matched her own growing resolve. Maybe they could turn the tables on Marcus. Maybe there was a chance to fight back against the suffocating grip of fear. Okay, she agreed, steeling herself. But we have to be smart about it. We can't attract any attention. Casey nodded. There's a bar on the edge of the district where the whistleblowers said they would meet us. We'll disguise ourselves and keep low. Her heart raced at the thought of stepping into the danger again, but she squared her shoulders. Let's make it quick. I want to be in and out. The longer we are exposed, the worse it gets. With a nod, Casey disappeared into the bedroom, returning moments later in a hoodie and baseball cap, looking remarkably different. He handed her a dark hoodie as well. This will help. Just keep your head down. As she changed, a sudden thought dawned on her, twisting her gut. Casey, what if they know we're coming? What if it's a trap? It won't be, he replied, though Jessica noticed a fleeting shadow cross his face. I'll text the whistleblower as we go. If something feels off, we'll bail. She wanted to believe him, but as they stood together, about to step back out into the night, dread quivered at the edges of her mind. With a deep breath, they opened the door and slipped into the darkness. Where the shadows bled into the unknown, they both felt it, that impending weight of confrontation. As they stepped into the night, Jessica couldn't shake the feeling that while they were seeking the truth, it might just lead them into a web of lies deeper than they ever imagined. The alleyway felt alive around them, a patchwork of shadows and distant sounds echoing through the air like whispered secrets. Jessica's heart raced, but her mind was increasingly focused. They had to outsmart whoever was after them. Keep moving, Casey urged quietly, glancing over his shoulder as if someone might spring from the shadows at any moment. They emerged onto a lonely street, the streetlights flickering above like dying stars. The bar loomed ahead, its neon sign buzzing erratically, the Rusty Nail. It was a dive rundown but perfectly unassuming. Stay close, Casey instructed, his eyes scanning the street. The air felt thick with tension, and every sound seemed magnified. The low murmur of voices inside the bar filled her with mixed feelings of hope and dread. Would they be safe in there, or was danger just waiting for them, masked beneath laughter and music? As they approached the entrance, Jessica hesitated. What if we walk in and it's a setup? What if he's waiting for us? There's no turning back now, Casey replied, his voice steady but low. He opened the door, and a burst of warmth enveloped them. The scent of cheap beer and fried food clung to the air. The bar was dimly lit, and a handful of patrons scattered about. None appeared to notice the two of them. They headed straight to a corner booth, where shadows enveloped them. Let's text him, Casey said, pulling out his phone with practiced ease. Jessica watched him, her pulse thrumming in her ears. Was this really the person they could trust? As he typed, a figure slid into the booth across from them. It was a man, unassuming in a worn leather jacket, his face shadowed by the low overhead light. You're late, he said, his tone clipped. Had some trouble, Casey replied, stealing a glance at Jessica. The man's eyes darted between them, assessing. Where's the proof? The man asked, voice flat as steel, his gaze steady and unwavering. Jessica's stomach twisted at the intensity of the moment. We're here for the information about Marcus, she stated, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Details on the laundering he's involved in. Money laundering is just the tip of the iceberg, the man replied, a smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Marcus is a puppet master. This deal runs deeper than either of you know. What do you mean? Casey pressed, his anxiety palpable. In that instant, the lights flickered again, casting long shadows across the table. It felt ominous. You think you're in control? That this is just a game? You've stumbled into a world that will swallow you whole if you're not careful, the man warned, leaning closer. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. What do you know? Who are you really? But before he could respond, the bar's door swung open violently, the sound of footsteps crashing against the hardwood floor echoed through the room. A trio of men entered, their faces carved from granite, eyes scanning the bar with brutal efficiency. Jessica's stomach dropped. Their presence screamed trouble. "Time to go," Casey whispered urgently, his face tightening. He slid his phone into his pocket as the man opposite them raised an eyebrow, his demeanor shifting into something more predatory. Before Jessica could process what was happening, Casey motioned to the side exit. "We need to move, now." The three men were busy, but it only took one glance for them to zero in on Casey and Jessica. "Run!" Casey shouted, and adrenaline shot through Jessica's veins. She sprang to her feet, heart pounding in rhythm with the footsteps that followed, the taste of panic hot on her tongue. They scrambled through the crowd. Jessica's breath came in ragged gasps. The weight of the world threatened to drag her down, but she couldn't stop. The exit loomed ahead, and behind them, danger breathed heavily on their necks. Just as they burst through the door into the cold night, a voice rang out deep and menacing. "You're not getting away that easily." Jessica's heart raced wildly as she and Casey sprinted down the street, the din of chaos fading behind them. But glancing back, Jessica's stomach churned as she realized one vital connection she'd previously overlooked: the man at the booth, the whistleblower. He was grinning as the men followed them. Was this all part of a much larger scheme? What was the real truth they had walked into? And in that moment, amidst the echo of pounding footsteps and the rush of adrenaline, Jessica understood, they weren't just running from danger. They were running straight into a trap. The cold air hit Jessica like a slap, shocking her system into high gear. Casey grabbed her wrist, urging her to keep moving as they rounded a corner. The pounding footsteps from behind echoed in the narrow street, each one igniting a spark of terror in her chest. "Where do we go?" Jessica gasped, her mind racing. Huddled between the dimly lit buildings, they were easy targets. "Just keep running," Casey replied, his breath coming out in harsh bursts. The city loomed around them, shadows curling in every alleyway. He pulled her through an opening, leaning against the brick wall, both of them gasping for air. That's when Jessica remembered the face of the man in the bar, the way he smiled, like he knew they were doomed. It made sense. "He set us up, Casey. That guy was playing us." Casey's eyes flashed with anger as he nodded. "And those guys back there are probably working for him. We need to get off the street." "Where?" Jessica's mind raced. Their options dwindled by the second. He scanned the area and pointed toward a narrow alley that led deeper into the block. "Over there. Let us go." They darted into the alley, the sounds of the city fading behind them. The walls rose high, engulfing them in darkness. Jessica felt suffocated, the silence pressing down on her as they moved deeper into the shadows. "Do you think we lost them?" she whispered, her voice barely a murmur. "I don't know," he replied, glancing down the alley. "But we can't stop to find out." Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence. A loud crash echoed from the direction they had just come. Zeitgeist and terror twisted in her gut. "Keep moving," Casey urged again, pushing her further along as they navigated around piles of debris. Jessica felt the adrenaline coursing through her body, but that knot of fear was relentless. The alley opened into an unlit courtyard, empty except for piles of forgotten trash and a few discarded crates. They slowed down, peering around cautiously. "This feels wrong," Jessica murmured, her instincts screaming at her to leave. "Just a moment, let me think." Casey leaned against a crate, trying to catch his breath. Just then, another crash resounded through the alley. They both froze. "Who the hell could that be?" Jessica whispered. Before Casey could respond, they caught a glimpse of dark figures emerging from the alley's mouth. "There!" he hissed, and they dove behind the crates, hearts pounding wildly. Jessica held her breath, terrified. The figures moved closer, and she could make out faint voices. "They couldn't have gone far," one of them growled. "We'll find them. Marcus wants those two alive." Her blood ran cold. Marcus, she whispered. The name struck her like a blow. What? Casey whispered back urgently. It's connected. The man in the bar must be working for him. This runs deeper than we thought. She trembled at the realization, her voice shaky. Just stay quiet. Casey reached for his phone, but it had slipped from his pocket, lost in their hurried escape. We can't communicate. The searchlights from a nearby car swept through the courtyard, blinding them for a split second. Jessica pressed herself against the rough stone wall, her heart racing uncontrollably. What now? She asked. If we get out of here, we need to split up. It'll make it harder for them to track us. Split up? She felt panic surging. Are you sure that's safe? It's the best chance we have. They'll be focusing on us together. Just meet me at the old train station in an hour if you can make it. Before she could argue, he slipped away into the shadows, the sound of his footsteps soon drowned out by the thudding heartbeat in her ears. Alone, Jessica felt the weight of dread settle like a heavy fog. Holding her breath, she planned her escape from the courtyard. Determination shot through her, she couldn't let fear corner her now. Carefully, she edged away from the crates, her nerves on high alert. A narrow path offered a glimpse out. Freedom seemed so close yet so far. But she had to move. Just then, a sharp click echoed behind her, and a voice low and chilling filled the air. Going somewhere? Jessica spun around to find a figure looming behind her, a sinister smile etched across his face. She froze, the darkness swallowing her screams. Was this the end? Or just another twist in a game much larger than she'd ever imagined? The figure stepped closer, the dim light revealing a familiar face, one that made her stomach drop. It was the man from the bar, the predator who had lured her and Casey into this deadly trap. Surprise, Jessica, he said, his voice smooth yet dripping with malice. I've been waiting for you. Thought you could run away from me? No. The word escaped her lips like a desperate prayer. She felt the rough wall pressing against her back, the alley closing in around her like a noose. Do you really think you could escape? He chuckled, the sound cold and mocking. You're in way over your head. But I can help you. Help me? Her voice trembled with disbelief. You just sent men after us. Because you too were a liability, he sneered. But I can offer you a way out. Join me, and we can make this city ours. No, I would never work with someone like you, she spat back, a flicker of defiance igniting the fear that surged within her. Then you're really making a mistake. The gleam in his eyes darkened, and he reached for her. Jessica felt her pulse quicken. She couldn't afford to freeze again, not now. A thought flashed in her mind. Casey. In a split second, she pivoted to the side and bolted down the narrow path, the sudden movement catching the man off guard. She darted past him, the adrenaline powering her legs, but she knew he would recover quickly. The pounding of her heart drowned out everything else, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she ran deeper into the maze of the alleyways. The darkness engulfed her, yet each step felt lighter as the lingering fear of that man's smile pushed her forward. She wasn't sure where to go next, but she had to find Casey. She could still hear the distant shouts of the men hunting for them echoing in the streets, their voices growing closer. Jessica. A familiar voice erupted from the shadows. It was Casey. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by urgency. Casey, we have to move. She urged, clutching his arm tightly. They found us. We don't have much time. He pulled her further down the alley, his voice low and tense. Did you find anything out? Not much, just that before she could finish, a burst of light erupted from behind them, cutting through the darkness. Jessica and Casey ducked just in time as beams of light flashed across the alley, illuminating the bricks and the garbage strewn about. Over here. They're this way. The hunters were not far behind. We need to hide. Casey grabbed her hand, dragging her toward a narrow gap between two buildings. They squeezed through, the gap offering only a fragile shield from prying eyes. They were cramped in the darkness, the smell of mildew and decay overwhelming. Jessica could feel the heat of Casey's body next to hers, their breaths mingling in the stale air. "Can you hear them?" he whispered, their words barely a murmur. Jessica nodded, her heart racing. The voices grew louder, more frantic. "We're running out of time," Casey said, his eyes wide with fear. "What are we going to do?" Suddenly, Jessica remembered something they had discussed earlier, back at the bar. "What if we go up?" she suggested, glancing at the fire escape ladder just a few feet away. "We can get a better view from there. Maybe we can find a way out." Casey hesitated, looking toward the sounds of their pursuers. "All right, let us do it," he replied, pushing past her to reach the ladder. The clatter echoed ominously in the stillness. As they climbed, the distant shouts transformed into a roar, the darkness of the alley morphing into a haze of uncertainty. Jessica's heart raced with both hope and fear. They could escape. They had to. Up here. Casey's voice fractured her thoughts, and she scrambled up to meet him. From the rooftop, they observed the chaos below, the hunters racing back and forth, their confusion palpable. But even as peace settled for a moment, shadows gathered in the distance, looming figures moving toward their escape. "Jessica, look!" Casey's voice filled with dread. "We're not safe yet." As she looked up, dread coiling in her chest, Jessica spotted multiple dark figures heading towards them. The reality of their situation hit her full force. They were surrounded. "There's nowhere to hide," she whispered, the cold air biting at her skin, but just then, Jessica spotted something glimmering on the rooftop next to her, a discarded object shimmering under the moonlight. Could it be their key to survival? "Get down!" Casey shouted, and they both ducked low, hearts pounding in their throats as the dark figures approached. The night was far from over, and danger was just beginning to reveal itself. What lay ahead for them? Would they find a way to turn the tides, or were they already caught in a web they couldn't escape? Jessica's heart raced as she crouched, scanning the rooftop for a way out. The figures below moved with purpose, their footsteps heavy against the gravel. A chill ran down her spine. If Casey was right, and they were surrounded, time was slipping like sand through her fingers. "Is there a way to the next building?" Jessica whispered, urgency in her voice. Casey's brow furrowed as he scanned the gap between rooftops. "If we can make that jump, we might have a chance." The gap seemed wide, but there was no other option. Heart pounding, she stepped closer to the edge, biting her lip. "On three," Casey said, determination sharpening his tone. 1, 2, 3. They launched themselves forward, adrenaline propelling them. Jessica landed hard on the next rooftop, pain shooting through her feet, but she barely felt it as she turned to help Casey up. They moved as one, weaving through dark shadows and over jagged rooftops. But as they neared the edge of the next one, they halted, terror flooding back. "What now?" she breathed, her eyes wide. "Down." Casey pointed toward a fire escape dangling precariously from the next building. "We have to get to the street." "Are you crazy?" Jessica shot back, fear knotting her stomach. "No choice." Without another word, Casey took the lead, and Jessica followed, clinging to the rusted metal as they descended. Each step felt like a countdown, each creak echoing her mounting panic. When they dropped to the ground, the adrenaline surged hotly in her veins. Jessica glanced around the dimly lit streets. "Which way?" "Back towards my place." "It's still the safest option," Casey replied, urgency threading through his words. Just as they stepped onto the sidewalk, a chilling realization hit Jessica. What if they're watching? They could be, but we have to push through. We'll get there. They began to run, moving swiftly but quietly through the narrow streets, their breaths mingling with the fear that hung in the air. The shadows twisted like specters around them, the night feeling alive with hidden dangers. Her mind raced. If Marcus was indeed behind all this, how deep did his network run? Casey, she panted, turning to him. How do we know we can trust the whistleblower? What if it was a setup to draw us out? Casey glanced at her, breathing hard. We have to take that risk, Jess. If they wanted us dead, they would have already done it. We need some proof, the evidence to expose Marcus and the real danger surrounding us. Right. Her resolve hardened. Their confrontation with Marcus would come, and they needed more than a gut feeling, they needed a plan. As they approached Casey's apartment complex, the streetlights flickered ominously, casting long shadows. Suddenly, a vehicle screeched to a halt nearby. Jessica's heart sank as she exchanged a terrified glance with Casey. Dark figures poured from the car, fanning out in search of them. Run! Casey shouted, tugging her into the building, desperate for safety. They slipped through the entrance just before the men reached the steps, adrenaline mingling with fear. They raced up the staircase, their footsteps echoing. Once inside Casey's apartment, he locked the door, gasping for breath. We need to stay quiet. They could be right outside. As silence enveloped them, Jessica's mind spiraled. What if we take the files to the media? Too risky. Not without hard proof, Casey shot back, his face tight with worry. The whistleblower might help, but we can't move without knowing the extent of Marcus's reach. I hate this, Jessica whispered, hands trembling. She felt the gravity of danger pressing down on her chest. Just breathe. We've come this far. Casey put a hand on her shoulder. We stick together and find a way to expose him. We've got to trust that the whistleblower will show us what we need. After a moment, the two sat, tension lingering between them. Jessica felt the knot of fear start to loosen. I won't back down, Casey. Not now, not ever. Neither will I, he replied, determination burning in his gaze. They shared a quiet resolve as they plodded, unaware of the shadow that loomed outside the window, a shadow that promised to change everything. With a deep breath, she realized this was the moment she'd fight back, not just for herself but for all that was right. In this brutal corporate game, they would unravel Marcus's secrets and turn the tables before it was too late. With renewed purpose, Jessica and Casey prepared to fuse their fates into one resounding fight against the encroaching darkness. She knew the road ahead would be treacherous, but together they'd face whatever hell Marcus sought to unleash. Time to tear down the walls of deceit. Time to reclaim their fates. And now, do you want to know what happens next? You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive chapters to this intense saga. Smash that like button now so we can keep this story alive, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Jessica and Casey's next moves. Do it quickly. This is the moment to show your support. And don't wait even one more second to share this thrilling journey with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.